ceiling of the village hall, at least. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to 6A, Sister Bay Historical Society requests the village contribution for the little sister bar.
I feel like I'm making this a regular event. Standing in front of you, I appreciate the time. In your packet, you have a request from the Sister Bay Historical Society for additional support. And before I go into that request, I want to again acknowledge the fact that the village of Sister Bay has been a long-term supporter of the Sister Bay Historical Society. Our relationship goes back 30 years, where you helped us save our original Anderson house. And subsequent to that, you have saved 16 buildings on the site, as well as you deeded the property to us. So we are totally indebted to the village for support. That being said, we're back again to ask for additional support. Many of you have had the opportunity to tour the Little Sister Barn, which we are extremely excited about in terms of the potential that it has, not only for our utilization, but what it had, the potential it has for a community center for Sister Bay. So that being said, in our letter, we were asking for your consideration for $750,000 that you could in fact spread over several years and help us with funding for that project. The project in itself, we have a $6 million goal. Of that $6 million, 4.5 million is really what it will take to do the construction, as well as the final fit out of the building. The 1.5 additional monies that we're asking for and looking to raise are basically for us to grow our endowment. And we're concerned that unless we have a way to sustain this project, we can build it, but we've got to have a plan to sustain it. And that's where our endowment comes in. So the 1.5 million will be added to an amount that we currently have, but that will help us sustain the project going forward. So that's what we're asking for, and I hope the village will take kindly to it. We're here obviously with some of my colleagues, and if you have any questions, we're happy to answer any questions.
And maybe we can hand out a couple of things.
That would be great.
Yeah, so with the materials that were supplied for this meeting, we had said that there was going to be included a copy of the letter that John sent to the village board, but we didn't do that. So I hand out that copy that originally went to the village board. And then we also said that we had a brochure that is going to be the basis for the campaign, the fundraising campaign. And in the materials that you received, you got pictures of some of the renderings that are in this brochure, but you didn't get the actual brochure. So those are the two things that I'm going to pass out here.
Thank you. Can I ask a couple of questions right after this? For the, how did you guys come up with the $4.5 million number for the interior renovation?
We have detailed architectural and engineering drawings that were prepared for us. So we have a fairly, not fairly, we have a detailed budget that we get together. So we know what the projected costs are going to be.
And Mike, can I add, I mean, we're working with Carlson Erickson.
Yeah.
So the 4.5 million was developed based on estimates that they've done on the work that they would themselves perform, as well as contractor estimates as well. Some of the 4.5 is still estimates and not specific quotes, but it's about as good as we can get at this point.
Right. And so the exterior is done.
Well, let me
Except for
clarify.
sorry, I'm probably one of the only people.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. Those of you who haven't seen it, I think Louise is the only one, Louise and Julie and Patrice have seen it multiple times. But we'd love to have you see it. The challenge for us is that in order to maintain the character of that barn, which is what it's all about, frankly.
Yeah,
We need to insulate it from the outside. And that means basically what you're looking at on the outside is basically siding. That's the original siding that's been painted for the last 100 years, 110 years, and preserved itself. The flip side of that on the inside is what you see when you're inside.
right.
And it's actually quite extraordinary. Photographs don't do it justice. But anyhow, so that's the challenge. So we're going to insulate it from the outside. The metal roof has to come off. Additional insulation has to go on. A new metal roof where reused metal roof goes back on. And then we have to do a sprinkler system. We have to do all of the upgrades for code requirements. The good news is that structurally, we've already done the upgrades to the roof structure and to the floor structure. So when you walk on the floor of that upper level right now, you're walking on the final floor, final underlayment. We have preserved all of the 110-year-old floorboards, and we'll reinstall those so that when you walk in, when that's done, you will be in a 110-year-old environment.
That's all. Oh, yeah.
Or are you gonna say you had, 4 million put in your checking account tomorrow from the village? What's your time frame in working with Carl?
Well, we have made an agreement with our board that we will not do any more construction until we have 80% of our financial goal. And once we have 80% of our financial goal, we'll go to the bank for a bridge loan and then start construction. We believe that the construction, the drawings are done. We believe we can get the construction done in about 18 months.
And just for further background, for further background, Terry, that's on top of the 600,000 that had been raised previously and got the place on its foundation, got it moved, part of which was contributed to by the village, but just giving that little bit of background. So the new fundraising campaign is from this point forward, $6 million.
Okay.
And of that $6 million, this is sort of the restart of that campaign right now. So within just the last month, the board and a small group of friends of the board have immediately pledged 600,000 and hoping that that will be 750,000 very shortly. Then the next phase of the fundraising campaign is to go out to key donors. Standard fundraising process, right? Get those key donors lined up before taking another step to advertise this more broadly to the general public. So long story answer to your question, but if the village 750 was added to our anticipated 750, we'd have 1.5 million of the 6 and anticipate that in the fundraising phase with big donors, by the end of the year into next year, we'll have a substantial part of that.
And you'd be able to reference our village. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I really admire the work the Historical Society does. Your volunteerism, your commitment to the village is outstanding. And I appreciate it. But I'm gonna probably say something you don't want to hear here. The village has a $4 million levy, and we have a debt expense that continues to grow. I'm not saying that something couldn't be worked out, but there are some hurdles to overcome here. I think Patrice made a very good point. We have other priorities as a village that would provide some of the same type of space that you're talking about. We're talking about in the process of making a decision to build a new administrative building, and that building will include community space. I think Patrice is exactly right that there is strong community support for renovation, not just of the ceiling, but of the village hall. So in terms of space, what the residents' tax dollars would be used for is kind of a third grand space for a 1,000-person village. So that's a tough pill to swallow. I think the village has done a good job of showing commitment to the Historic Society. We haven't even yet felt the impact of the decision that's, I think, made to give a low-cost lease to the Historical Society for the Marina Museum,
Right.
which is gonna, take away potentially a lot of revenue the village could have raised from revenue, a restaurant, or some other decision we could have made to have a different building there. And I think it was probably the right decision. So, and then lastly, I think there's a lot of technicality around the village making a contribution to a private entity, unlike the ice rink, that's a public property that's 75–80% funded by private dollars. So it's a public-private partnership, but it's a facility that's kind of the village's. The Historic Society is an independent entity. This property would not belong to us, it would belong to you, which it should. So I think this is probably an opening of a dialogue around maybe some level of village participation, but I think it's complicated. And I think the likelihood of something getting into the budget we have in front of us for next year is pretty slim. That's my opinion. I'm one person, but that's my opinion, and that's what I would advise this committee and the board.
So I, couple of things on that, and ask John to talk about the comparison of spaces, but just on the last point about where and when this might fit, I think we're trying to get smarter about the process here.
Yeah.
But our understanding would be that this step of the process is a hearing to see whether or not it might fit into the capital improvement plan, with an expectation that it wouldn't be a budget item any sooner than likely 2028.
Yeah.
So no request for immediate funding in the 2027 budget, just to be clear.
And to be clear, I'm not the expert, and I think it's good that you're beginning the dialogue.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have to look at just not what's feasible, but we have to look at priorities, and we have to look at what's allowable based on
Sure.
existing legislation.
Sure, and yeah, even the notion of it being a part of the capital improvement plan for the very reasons that you mentioned,
Yeah.
But John, I think, can talk further about the points you raised about the spaces and the comparison of the space that we're talking about here to the space in the village hall, to the space in the administration building, so.
Yeah, I think that what we're proposing here is much more akin to how the Crest Center functions in Egg Harbor. The Crest Center basically has a large event space on the upper level. It functions as a library. It functions as the home for the Historical Society. And they have worked out the financial arrangement that those additional entities help fund the Crest Center, but the village contributes, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, $125,000 a year for the running of the Crest Center. I'm hoping many of you have been there. I mean, it's a wonderful facility. The facility that we're talking about is different because it really is the essence of our history. It is a 110-year-old structure that I can't tell you the number of people who have come up to me and told me that they vacation there. They played basketball in there, they shot bow and arrow in there, they had barn dances in there, okay? So there's a connection, a personal connection to people who live in this village. You know, we have been talking about this for a long time. I spend my Saturdays at Corner of the Pass at our open air market and talking about the opportunity that we have with this building. And I can't tell you that at least a couple of people come up to me every Saturday and tell us how happy they are that we saved the building and how happy they are about the potential new use for it. So there is a community awareness of it at this point, and a community desire, not unlike the Village Hall, to maintain this facility. And you know, that's where I think the important connection is. Yes, we're not like the ice skating rink. We're not a village property, but boy, we sure contribute to the village ambiance and vitality. Come to us for Kindle Market, and you'll understand how what a vital role we play in this community.
John, if we were talking about the comparison literally of the space that this structure creates versus, say, the administration building. What is the auditorium style capacity of this building?
We have the ability to accommodate 120 people in a sit-down banquet. We have the ability to seat auditorium style, 175 people. And if we take all the furniture out and have a major event, stand-up cocktail party, the code will allow us to have 245 people in that room. So it's a major space.
And as compared to the Village Hall, I don't know what the capacity of the Village Hall is. But I guess the point is, it's a different capacity of space, as well as a different style of space. But the closest comparison, I guess, would be to the Village Hall. Hopefully, the administration building doesn't have to have as much space for significant meetings because of the opportunities that might exist elsewhere like this one. And as far as the Village Hall versus this building, that's a more interesting comparison because, you know, the Historical Society has supported the preservation of the Village Hall also. So we feel that connection too. But what this structure does versus Village Hall, again, maybe I'll let you have a thought about that a second further.
Well, the advantage here is that when it's complete, it will be totally accessible to disabled constituents. We're planning an elevator. We're planning totally accessible restrooms. It will be available year-round. It'll be totally sprinklered. So it'll meet all the current fire code requirements. And we have ample parking. There's absolutely no issue with parking. We have 55 spots that I believe that are required or on the plan, plus the adjacent parking that we currently use for our current museum parking. So the ability to easily accommodate large groups and have parking is not an issue, whereas we know it's an issue at the Village Hall.
Oh, go ahead.
So I do think that the barn is unique to the extent that, it's unique. I mean, the building is unique. The reason that the village, I think, gave 25,000 or so to move it, something like that. I don't remember.
Yep.
Is because it's only one of two in the state with that design. And everybody at the time, everybody's hair was on fire because of what was going on at Fred and Fuzzy's. And it was awful. I mean, it's to this day, people are just go over there and just, it was rough. It was 100 years old. And so keeping that was great. So and that came, like moved with the building. It's very beloved. So, so what's unique about it, and the reason I think you can't really compare it to Village Hall is a viable entity. Absolutely. This is a viable entity. I think the admin office is kind of a one-off, meaning like we would use it for a lot of public functions, and it needs to be functional for our administration and our staff, our committees and boards, and then also there's a meeting room that can also be utilized. So, but I think in this case, these two things are worthy and viable, right? And one is I'm not gonna talk about Village Hall because we've talked about it so many times. It's worthy, it has its drawbacks for a lot of different reasons, but it's worth it. But when you look at the barn, so the big thing is parking, and you're right, the great big thing is parking. But from a revenue standpoint, when you look at the crest and the size of the barn and the size of the crest and so forth, I mean, a lot of the revenue comes from events and a lot of it comes from weddings. And you've got the parking for that, which is great. So that what you have to be able to me, you have to be able to do is you have to be able to sustain it independently. You have to be able to have the revenue. You have to be able to have the cash flow, and the crest did not after a while. So you need to look at their model and what happened and what they had to do to fund it. Because they didn't know, right? So that's what you really need to do. And so just that aside, I know you need to know, I know you know that. So if you don't want to start construction or doing anything with it till you're 80%, that's 4.8 million. So if you've got a commitment of roughly about 750, if the village, I'm not saying this is going to happen, if the village gave you to 750, that's $1.5 million for you're at 3.3, you've got to raise still to start any kind of construction. I mean, you've got the plans and stuff. Carlson Erickson is certainly capable. We can review plans, but that's 3.3 million before anything happens. Anything. So, you're gonna have to, in the meantime, I don't know, like you said, that the Crest, Egg Harbor gives the Crest 125 grand a year for ops. I don't know that would be anywhere in your future with this. I don't know. You have to assume it's not going to be. I don't know that. I know that's not why you brought it up. I know that. But you just have to assume that you are self-sustaining. You can do it on your own. And you can move Chris Kindle over there. You can do a lot of other events over there. And I think that's probably viable. But you're gonna have to put some numbers to it to understand.
If I could, Louise, I mean, John and I had a conversation with the manager of the Crest for this very reason. We don't want to get in the position of putting forward a building concept and find 2 years later that the funds aren't there for sustaining operations.
Right.
So we had the conversation about what basically the elements of their budget are. And talked about what the revenue is that they get. I guess bottom line, part of the reason that the $6 million campaign includes this $1.5 million allocation for an endowment. So 4.5 for construction, 1.5 for an endowment.
Yep.
Just the simple math, if you use the Door County Community Foundation's numbers for return on an endowment, if you did 1.5 million times 5%, you're talking about $75,000 a year, obviously.
Yep.
Beyond that $75,000 a year, there's an expectation that there will be event revenue. And so putting those, and you can never forecast this thing perfectly, but putting those kinds of numbers together, there's a feeling of relative confidence that we're planning appropriately for that sustaining mode without an expectation of $120,000, it's $120,000 allotment from the village.
Because you're gonna have to add staff to manage those,
Yep,
manage
yep,
those events.
Yep, and what,
Which is huge. You're gonna have to add marketing costs. I know I'm telling you everything.
we looked at, we looked at their utilities costs, we looked
Yeah.
at their maintenance costs.
Well, I mean,
Guys.
you know what the net is on Chris Kindle. Have you been running it?
Yeah.
You know, you can't break even on Chris Kindle. You gotta make some money, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that was my only.
Sorry to interrupt. We'll do maybe one more question from Terry and then just in the essence of time, because there's someone waiting online from there. You know, we can ask more questions.
Realizing that this is not gonna, probably not gonna be in the 2027 budget, I think you did mention that, moving forward in 2028. Do you plan on really ramping up your funding requests? Even though you don't have a commitment from the village, because what I'm getting at is, if you're ramping that up and you're getting these big donors, or you're getting a lot of buy-in from other folks. You come back to us, you might not need $750.
That would be a happy.
That would be fantastic, but that's what I'm saying, I mean, these numbers that you're throwing out. Can't really be carved in stone yet. They're somewhat flexible.
The 6 million total, or?
No, the money you're asking from the.
Oh, from the village, right. No, again, the next phase of fundraising is to go to those key donors, and
Yeah.
if we're highly successful, maybe we will have that,
Okay, I just wanted to, make sure that was.
The traits to be.
I just had a quick comment. I'm hoping the finance committee and the village board can kind of view it in this light as well, that the creation of the barn and expanding the historical society is a drawing card for historical tourism. Huge. It's gonna be great for Sister Bay. Just like the Chris Kindle Market, it fills hotel rooms, it fills restaurants, it fills shops. It brings in a lot of revenue, and now this has the opportunity to bring in off-season revenue as well. It's a beautiful plan. It's gonna be one of the nicest museums in northeastern Wisconsin, if not northern Wisconsin. We have tons of artifacts that are sitting in storage that can't be displayed. They will be displayed beautifully. The history of Sister Bay will be mapped out beautifully, and it's just gonna be a drawing card. It's gonna be it's a diamond for Sister Bay, and it really helps Sister Bay as a village, as a community, and it's just all good stuff. So I really hope that they can see it in that light of what it's going to bring to Sister Bay for many years.
And I love just one quick follow-up. I love saving anything. I'm a historical buff. Love it. My only question is, do you think this will be difficult to do the barn and the downtown waterfront museum fundraising for all those things at the same time?
It shouldn't be. Actually, there are two different constituencies. The voter community already has stepped up. And the
Conservation work. That allotment originally was $5,000 a year for many years, and it was increased to $15,000 a year 2 years ago. As the Historical Society pointed out in its recent letter to the village about the Little Sister Barn, The work that the society does is very well aligned with the historic preservation and historic tourism goals that we have in our 2025 comprehensive plan. In short, the work that they are doing helps us to achieve those goals. As the liaison from the village board to the Historical Society and an attendee at their board meetings, I have had the opportunity to see the work that they do. And their preservation work expands on behalf of all of us. The resources required to do this work has also increased. For that reason, I am recommending that we increase the annual allotment from $15,000 a year to $30,000 a year, effective in 2027. I welcome any additional comments from the Historical Society representatives.
Well said. We appreciate that suggestion.
Any
We'll
other
touch on that
questions?
when we go through it, but
Well, I would just say in terms of action item for this one, if we, depending on the merits of what it is, really what the request is, whether or not to include it as part of the capital improvement plan at this time. What's being proposed is that there would be allocation starting in 2028. It would be something where we'd have to have some determination about what the term of the obligation would potentially be. It is it is something where it's included as part of the plan, but it's not a contract. So just because we put it as part of our capital improvement plan does not mean it necessarily is going to be an allocation for the budget year. So really what's being decided at this, or what could be proposed at this time is whether or not to include it as part of the CIP within future drafts.
I would not move to propose that. I think there's too much work that needs to be done before that's considered.
I was gonna say, I would propose that we continue to have a discussion about it, but it certainly would not be in the 2027, which is not what you're asking. Right? But that, maybe we put it in as a line item placeholder, so it continues to be talked about.
Yeah, we still need to have a general discussion about the SIP anyway.
Couldn't you just
So-
put, I'm sorry, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
go ahead.
No, we need to have a general discussion about the SIP, see what's laid out there, because we haven't even done that yet.
Yeah. that would
And
be-
then take a look at what we need to move or what stays where it is, including 28, 29. So,
I think what your idea, I think is a good idea. If you just put it, can't you just create a line item, but with no funding? So you have it as a placeholder in the 2028.
I think there typically is like a future considerations. There should be a punch list of things we're getting requests from the village and we keep track of them. I think you do that already, don't you, Plan? Have a
Well,
list?
we have like
Yeah.
2032, and so essentially this is a capture of a 5-year period of what
Yeah.
we're looking at. We typically include any future projects within that category. There is some things, for
As long as there's a
example.
place for it.
Yes,
I'm with you guys, but this is too loose of a request at this point to even get documented, in my opinion. I see it more as a starting point for discussion that could facilitate a future line item. And there's several actions that have to be taken before we can even do that. I'm not a fan of putting items on the list just to have a list without a good understanding of whether or not it's feasible, and affordable, whether or not it's legal, whether or not it's consistent with our long-term strategy for the village. So I think there's a great discussion. I think there's unbelievable potential. I think your explanation for the facility is outstanding. And I think you probably, to Terry's point, have the potential to raise the money yourselves to cover it so that the village doesn't have to get involved in a private entity. So, I mean, I would not be, other than put it on a punch list of potential considerations, I don't want to get it in the numbers. That's my input. Others may have different.
No,
No,
is
it's
that
not.
what, okay,
I don't think it's really a vote. I think
I don't know. I didn't know
we
what
keep it on our list for
this
future
was.
discussion, but I don't think we populate any numbers.
yeah, and that's completely fine. It's just in terms of, so that was just in terms of framing the issue, it was part of the request. I'm not saying anything in terms of do or don't. But it's just the next steps in terms of it being defined at this point would be to have future discussions.
Future discussion, but this is not an action item that we're not putting it on the SIP. That was what I was wondering. Okay.
Can you let us know what, if any, additional information you think might be worth having to flesh this out and answer any concerns about it?
Yes, definitely. So we're gonna go through the SIP today and then we do it about twice a month from now through October.
Good.
So we'll be going through everything thoroughly, and then I think it will be a question of, like Mike said, where we're at. Obviously, things like the village hall have been waiting for a very long time, so we'll be looking at things like that also. And the village owned properties, but that's, I think it's definitely a discussion worth having though. But yeah, I don't know, is that something on our end that we find out, or is that something on their end if we, about if we were to do it in the next couple of years, is it legal for us to just
That would be our
give
action.
money?
That would be our
That's
action, I
so
think, to
nice.
go to the village attorney and say,
and
look,
ask him?
how would this work, even if we wanted to consider it? How would this even work? Is
Well,
it allowable?
we give donations to various,
But there's limits.
Right.
there
right.
is some limitations as well, but yeah, I mean, it would have to be fleshed out in terms of. Having this, it would be ideal, let's just say theoretically before this, more than likely would have to be some sort of agreement. You know, that would have to be finalized.
There'd have to be a public hearing, we'd have to solicit, I mean, it's a pretty big number. I mean, we have a.
I don't know if we know what we have to do, so we can just. keep
Right, so I
discussing.
think we'll start researching on our end what it all involves. Maybe we'll contact our village attorney and just see kind of what it looks like. But if anything comes up on our end that we think you guys can answer, we'll reach out right away, so we have those answers.
So the bottom line is, we've got 3 or 4 discussions about the SIP. You wanna know what the SIP, what the final, what we're gonna put, what the SIP's gonna look like when we put it to bed, and that's a communication you want from us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Plus, we also obviously want to make sure that we don't leave any questions unanswered.
sure,
as you're
absolutely.
Doing
Okay.
your consideration.
Well, that's fair, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
also want to reiterate our invitation to come and see the barn, because you'll get a totally different feeling once you see it.
Yeah. No, I would love to. All right, guys, we are gonna move on to 2027, the preliminary review and discussion.
So before we go into the content of the actual CIP itself, or what's being proposed, we do have Jennifer from Bear here. Hopefully communication goes through with all the internet issues, but something that was discussed in the past was a review or reconciliation of the reserve funds based on past
Yeah.
projects. So we have been in communication with Jennifer about that. She's gonna provide some additional information regarding that, and then after this, she did state that she would, you know, compile it into a little bit more of a formalized report or memo that would be distributed.
You just guys disconnected.
Spoke too long. Liz, you may also have a better opportunity. Gonna be sharing, otherwise we can refer to.
Yeah, it's try to speak. Can I put you on the speakerphone as the internet on and off?
There's also supposed to be 3-inch cameras.
Yeah, that's why I rode my bike, so when I hit my car, you could see it hit my head.
You know, there's gonna be hail.
Well, still trying to connect.
But I may have,
Well, I have her.
You have hers?
Yeah, but I can't, she's got a screen share. Well, I have a screen share on mine.
Say you have, sure.
I have it on mine, it's not on that one.
so maybe if we have it, if people are on their individual hotspots and they want to look at it.
Is it working now?
No, she just took it off.
Is she showing us something or talking to us?
She is talking to us and showing us something.
I'm in the waiting room, I'm not sure if you can accept me.
Okay.
So go ahead, maybe you try to screen share once again. You already know that.
I don't see you later.
Hopefully you can.
You're all Village of Sister Bay Zoom meeting,
There you are.
there I am. And now you let me in.
Can you see it? Ben?
I need to spell, I was kicked off before.
Okay, I'm just gonna put,
I'm sure the weather has something.
I'm gonna put my phone right.
A threat alert as well. So I have really bad weather here. So it could be on my internet.
Yes.
I'm gonna bring it over so you can see it.
It's case sensitive. That's all.
Do you see, anybody see or should I try it again?
No, I can see it. We can see it on our individual screens. It's just, oh, there it is, working.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's easier, well, you can't see it up there,
Right.
so you gotta look at it on your individual screens anyway.
Did it work?
That screen's always too far away.
And I just went into the email and opened it up. Okay.
Would it be okay for Jennifer to talk on the phone? Or
Whichever she prefers.
Jennifer, I think they can hear you. My phone is not that loud, but
I'm on my way in, Julie.
Is the
Okay.
owl, like if she spoke through the owl?
I can give it a try. How does that work?
I can hear,
I think the speaker's fine.
yeah, I think we can hear you pretty well.
Is it turned off?
Louise, you're still not
Okay.
showing up.
I am, it's connecting now. Give me a minute. Little
There
slow.
we go.
Hello.
So I'm having imminent threat of weather here as well. So if I all of a sudden hang up, it might be that reason as well. I'm getting echo.
Everybody's sound off.
I just turned mine off, sorry.
Is it okay now?
Okay, let me try. I still have an echo.
We don't have an echo.
Well, I think the owl is picking it up.
Yeah, it's because you're right next to the owl recorded device.
Can we disconnect the?
How come we can't hear her through here?
because it's on the phone, right?
Should she?
Maybe she needs to.
Here through the computer, maybe we don't need the phone anymore.
Correct.
Yeah, try unmuting on Zoom.
Okay. I can hear everyone. Can you hear me?
You're coming through your phone.
Okay, should I hang? I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna hang up. We'll see how it's gonna work.
Okay, can you hear me?
Wow,
Yes.
a lot,
Perfect.
great.
Okay, now I gotta turn. mine on.
Great.
Ready?
All right. I will try my video. If I run into problems, I might turn off my video while I'm sharing, if that causes us problems. All right. Everyone can see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get started before the weather hits again. All right, so this is in response to the
Uh-oh.
I think it just, they show too much bandwidth.
this is last year it started about looking projects fund categories. I'll fit under. All right, can you still see my screen?
We can see your screen, but you're cutting in and out.
Okay. Is
Going.
that better? I turned off the video.
Keep going.
Seems better.
Okay. All right, this is response to the allocation of tax fund categories for the village. After
I don't know if this one's gonna.
to the work last year, and after I provide you with the feedback that you
Mike, turn off your video.
can you hear me?
Mike, no.
Turn off my video. Okay.
I'm getting low bandwidth, unstable network. Let me try one other thing.
Mike, I don't think it's gonna help. Never
I
mind.
have my video.
It's hailing here right now, so I'm not surprised. Hailing and blowing. So can you hear me now? Is it better?
It's not really better, Jennifer. I think we may unfortunately have to reschedule.
Okay.
Portion.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of. Like I said, it's really bad weather here right now, so I'm not surprised.
How are
So
you?
Now all of a sudden we can hear
And
you.
Sean-
good. Why
We're in
why
China.
don't you just give it a crack here real quick, because we can hear you perfect now
Okay.
when we're chatting.
Keep your
All right,
video-
all right, I'm showing your capital projects fund here, just jump right in. So, the end of the year, you can see it's 6,855,818. Does everyone see that in the third column there for capital projects? So that's really what we're working with to try to get to an allocation at 12/31/2025. So this is your audit from this end of this year. So we reviewed available minutes, some staff notes, spreadsheets, obviously back from Tasha. Vlad was very helpful as well to dig through past records. We've dug through, as I said, minutes, also with Adam and some of the historical, but obviously some of it predates our involvement, and so we're limited to what we can find out. So we're going to give you the findings to be able to go forward for the village to move forward in order to decipher that amount. So one thing first is the spreadsheet here that we have come up with, as well as from the original. And this is one of the things that we talked about with the auditors last year. My first is that, and this was about items that were allocated to the Pratt. So they did allocation as of the end of from 24, as well as some of the 25. And I'll give you the details on that in the memo, but just to give you an idea, that was one of the things. The that remain in the streets, sewer, and items that are expense for this year are items
Jennifer?
from highway. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but maybe you could start with some context here for all of us. I mean, how much cash do we have that you validated, and how much of it is allocated, and how much of it is generally available as a reserve?
Okay, and now we'll get to that. That's where this will come into play. So let me jump to that. So this spreadsheet is multiple years that will be shared with the staff. It's from 23, 24, 25. At this point, 25 is on your screen. The actual audit showed, as I showed earlier, 6,855,818. The actual cash for capital projects per year audit is 6,855,818 as well. So that is the amount that is in there currently. So therefore, we backed in, you figured out all of this information years, and here is the balances. So this is what I will go through here in each of the categories and kind of give you an idea. There is some unallocated and so forth, but that's what I'm going to work through here. But yes, 6,855,000. And so this is in the activity and trying to put it into the various categories that existed. So for instance, one of the categories or one of the items you get each year is interest income. And so one of the big items, over here, I'm sorry to be moving it, is interest income right here. And it's towards the bottom. Each year those funds need to be allocated after the audit completion to specific reserve categories. In the past, they were allocated and therefore need to be allocated in specific dollar amounts, or if there's board wants to, or committee wants to recommend, but in the past it had been allocated each year. One of the other categories is wayfinding, village signage, for instance. That one has been allocated from the budget, and that amount has not changed. So that's an area where, does it still for future, as far as the,
This is a valuable discussion. It's
Yeah,
killing me.
it's not-
I've been asking for this since I got on this committee.
So we should probably reschedule.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault. Nobody's fault.
She'll have the memo prepared. She wanted to go through it with everything.
But I
prior
think she
to it.
needs to go through with everything, because there's gonna be questions.
I mean, you've reviewed this in advance. Can you help her out here at all? I mean, is this, the first big question I have is based on their analysis, do we have what we're supposed to have a certain amount? One of Baird's jobs was to say, based on what we either levied the taxpayers or borrowed or bonded, it should be a dollar amount. Let's hope it's 6.8 million. That first question is the 6.8 million match what our taxpayers and our borrowing and bonding should have yielded for us? That's the first question. The second question is now, by individual projects, as you've described, how are those dollars allocated? Because I agree, the village board might have to make decisions if something hasn't been done for a few years. Is that still a viable project that we're gonna spend those dollars on, or are we gonna reallocate them, or what are we gonna do with them? And the problem we had way before you, Ben, is that this was difficult. When Vlad came in, this was a mess. He told us it was a mess, and he asked for help to sort it out and audit it. And this audit that Baird's done, I think is gonna help us a lot if we can hear this presentation. Okay,
Well, I would just,
You're
I mean, Jennifer, if she's available, she can jump in, but I would just also say it's not an audit. right?
okay,
It's a reconciliation attempt in terms of the information, so.
I get it. So it might not be perfect. I get it.
Yes, I was gonna say, just in terms of setting.
But it's better than anything I've seen.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
just to reiterate, Jennifer, are you back on?
She's showing up as a participant, but
Can I
You may not be able to hear us.
try to answer some of your questions, Mike?
Of course.
So as far as these reconciliations, whatever money were collected, not spent, they actually matching, nothing was spent. Nothing came out from the bank accounts. Everything is in the system. So we do have funds that matching and audit improves.
Perfect.
So
And
they're in reserve somewhere.
yes, they are in reserves. They are like in bank accounts, as I mentioned, we have like 40 of them,
40 of them?
So
something like that. Some of them broke
Like
down.
different, yeah, different buckets.
Some of them broke down between CDs and things like that, so I'm trying
Are
to,
they all labeled with what they're allocated to?
some of them not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah, so that's. that
The
was
numbers
thing.
add up and match what's in reserve,
The
match
cash
what's.
matches to general ledger to the penny. So that was my priority when I took over, cash needs to.
Match.
Match.
That's, I mean, so I'm really happy to hear that.
No, cash matching.
Because if the cash matches, we can always figure out the other stuff, right? We might have to have a motion and a recommendation to the board that they do something differently,
Yeah.
but the cash matches.
Cash
That's the first time I've heard that in 2 years.
I mean, I thought I was reporting that cash matches.
Well, you were, but you also reported many times that it was really important that we get it validated through a reconciliation or an audit,
Maybe I'd want that to happen.
which now I think we've confirmed.
Yeah, and what she said, that there is part unallocated, which is like interest on. All
Right.
those,
And those
Right.
40 accounts.
Yeah,
and again, there were no SOPs written down how to and what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So now bringing this ClearGov on board, everything's gonna be documented and in the system when something gets shuffled around. And
It's another.
can I be like super straightforward?
yeah,
Practice of Sister Bay was, okay, let's reserve, let's collect, and then let's shuffle around. Do you remember that, okay, it's just a story from like street in Europe. You go and they playing those cups and putting like something in the cup and then shuffling around. And you think it's right there. No, it's on another table.
Yeah, I mean, Vlad, a couple of things. One, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with it. And you got us to a better place. It seems like now the finance committee can kind of move on to, okay, we got 6.8 million bucks here in our reserve. However, some of that is intended for very specific reasons that we promised the residents we would spend the money on, and we've got to make sure that we do that. And some of it might be no longer necessary or require reconsideration by the board, and we should recommend reconsideration by the board. And some of it may just be excess cash over expenses we've accumulated that is a true reserve. There could be more detail than that, but it seems to me that that's kind of what you put us in a position to determine. And that's something that I think, you know, Bridget's talked about this before. Ultimately, we have to spend the money on what we're committed to spend the money on. And if there is a reserve, we should know what it is so that we're prepared for unexpected expenses. So, you know, that was a big driver of what we wanted to do this for. Are you agreeing with me, or do I understand it right?
You understand everything correctly, and another reason for all of this was not less important is to offset the borrowing, figuring out like what we have, what we can use, what actually we can maybe like borrow from ourselves.
Right.
To finish this mill road.
That wouldn't affect, and that won't impact the levy because the taxpayers already got it covered.
So yeah, that's the biggest two reasons why, like, reconcile everything, figure out what can be used, like, of our own money for the future project without like hurting any of the ongoing projects. And, you know, things like that.
Sorry, is Jennifer on? I was gonna say.
Yes, I am on.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yep, let's try to fit the rest of it, if there's anything to add before ours goes out again. And then we'll come back.
Oh, my God.
Well-
Did you hear that, Jennifer?
It has.
It's hell here. That's what's happening. Okay.
Okay, well, it's terrible here too. So it went out various times. So I don't know how far I'm going to get, but you could see, I'm going to try to hit the highlights. These are the balances. Obviously, I'm just going to go through. This wasn't what I planned, but ice rink, there was a little discrepancy between this and what is in the, and I'm not saying it's bad discrepancy, but it's just the CIP. And we need to look at, like, that one had a beginning balance of 75,000 in there we had, and 500,000. So I'm showing this, there's difference from the CIP. And when I say the CIP, it's the capital improvement plan that was done back in 24 to 28. And so that is another thing to look at while we're doing some of this, is reconciling that and making sure that these items in the future going forward are, you know, they coincide and are properly match, I guess is what you want to say. So those are all tools in us. Is, you know, obviously, just in case you didn't hear me before, so I'm reiterating, but the CIP, these balances, and then obviously the budget and so forth. So in each of these accounts, so obviously your large one here is because of the broadband and what you have going on there. So those are kind of restricted for that, you know, purpose at this point. The equipment reserve and vehicle reserve, just quickly, those aren't necessarily in ways, those are sometimes unclear. When you are allocating, it's good to be very clear of what intention is when you're saying that something needs to be allocated for dollar amounts, not or exact percentages, because in some of this, in this analysis, we found, like, it said, use this, do this vehicle. Well, does that come out of the vehicle, or is it for parks? If it's, you know, a park vehicle, right? So some of the categories are not necessarily coinciding with how your actual budget is done, public works, parks, so on and so forth. So some of these categories categories, it can be difficult. If you are going to maintain these categories, it needs to be explicit that it's coming from the vehicle reserve or is it coming from parks? I hope that's clear, as well as just being clear with any of the designations. In the past, there was one that was passed in December of 24 that talked about water, that it should be used for water and sewer laterals, then landscaping, and then the remaining balance in a municipal tree fund. That's why tree fund highlighted. There wasn't a tree fund before that. So if there's going to be one established, again, be clear. And then again, the amounts that are to be each one. It's hard for Vlad or anyone in the finance, right, to know how much am I supposed to put in there from that kind of designation and so forth. So it needs to be clear in the categories that you are using. So right now it's these. If you slightly change them, right, that's obviously something that you'll want to keep in thinking about as well. So one thing is one other thing is the land and building facilities reserves. I think those are kind of been a little bit both used for either. I don't know if that it's really clear. I've kept them separate, but obviously the building land or the purchase of the property in the past we put there. There really was never found on how that property was purchased was to be funded specifically from the reserve and capital. But then I look here, here's our unallocated amount. So we have amounts unallocated. Again, mostly it is interest income each year. However, that's something that needs to be as well designated and so forth and what it's going to be. Or is it going to be just used for capital projects as they come up? And that is, a policy that you can make as well. But right now it seems like that is not clear to everyone. And so that's obviously something that the committee board wants to look into. So the one other thing I'll say is also looking through this, the fire department, we found that there was 180,000 was budgeted in 2024. I'm going to go back a little bit here. And then additional 10,000 was for the weight room. And at the January, when we discussed this, the weight room had not been paid over contribution. They hadn't bought any of the weight room equipment yet. So obviously want to coordinate that and so forth. So those are just, I think those are the highlights of very quick, so I didn't lose you, of each of the items. Obviously, like I said, I have a more detailed report. One other question, and then I'll take some questions if I can stay on the time, is I believe, Mike, you had asked about the general fund balance, and I just wanted to show page 61 of the audit very nicely. Was through fund balance, and this brings me back to my auditing days, so I don't mind talking about this kind of stuff, but this is the 25 audit. So on your fund, there's 90,618 of that was non-spendable. So it's of two amounts, prepaid items and advance. So they're usually longer term or prepaid items that are there. And then the remaining balance.
It is lagging on here. She's got it up there.
Where you could see the message on our thing and so your internet.
Mike, you did ask a question about general fund reserves, how much is allocated toward non-spendable and what part is, so we have over $2 million.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jennifer, you're really cutting out here.
Okay.
Jennifer, here.
Can you still see my screen? Okay.
Just let me ask this question in case we lose you. When you send us the memo that you're gonna send us on this, are you gonna, these suggestions you just went through about how we can apply more discipline? Yes. Vlad's already made most of those, but it's good to have them in writing so we can make sure the finance committee, this one in future, and the board, this one in future, sees that this is an area that requires a little more discipline than we've had before, Vlad and Ben.
Yes, I will be sending the memo over, and each of the sections, or most of them that have a specific, they have recommendation as well as the or action needed. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else I can answer quickly or that you would like to? This is not how I wanted to present it, guys. Definitely not. So.
Okay, I guess when you had the Excel sheet up and you had the balances for each of kind of the categories, do you or Vlad have the breakdown on what projects those were and in what year?
So this is an ongoing thing that it's a reserve account. So it's like an ongoing of what was, so each year the budget had, so for instance, I'm going to go to 2025, the budget showed that so much was going to go to building and facilities, so much was going for info and so forth. So it's running. It's not necessarily by project. It's by that category. So in that, obviously, maybe an easy one is the broadband, right? Info technology. Obviously, there is the 3 million that was 3.3, but then also there's a lot of interest income, right, that you've been earning on that. And maybe you also in the past, I know there was like server things and, things like that. So it's not by project in this respect, it's by reserve and an ongoing category. And that's where the categories, like back to what I said about wayfinding, again, I don't know if I cut out, is if you didn't need that category, if it's no longer a need, then maybe that category then needs to be redesignated for something else. I'm just using it as an example. I don't know if it's needed. Sorry.
And in your answer was that basically you were saying that's where we probably should have more discipline so we can answer Bridget's question in the future more precisely. Am I getting that right?
Well, just so it would give you what you have in that reserve. So yeah, if you get a $50,000 donation, for instance, and you say, well, I'm going to just use it for these 3 categories. Vlad wants some instruction, right? Of how that to get that, right? Is 20,000 going to go to this or 10 to that and forth. So just keeping that in mind when future designations that is clear. Sometimes you can be like, use it up to the extent of this project and any remaining could go to the tree fund, right? That still is at least obtainable understandable, but just making sure that those are specific in how you want them. So everyone that it makes his life easier too. So does that answer your question?
Thank you.
So if we get
You're welcome.
interest, say we have a CD at one of the 40 banks or whatever, and we generate some interest on a large CD for us that's in there for a project. When that interest, we can take that interest and put it anywhere, is what you're saying? For any other project?
Well, yeah, whatever the board or committee designates, right? It would have to, if you have a policy, then you'd have to follow that. If you, right now, it was just looked like each year they were allocating it before when Tasha was there, they were doing some kind of allocation of it, not the same percentage each year. But I think a lot of it was going for, parks or something like that. But yeah, you can use it, whatever. The only thing is the info, there's two interest income CDs or accounts that I know for the actual interest earned on your broadband funds, those are going back into that fund, and because of that reason, and also the facility, I believe, and Vlad, you can give a little bit more on that, but those were separated out. But this is the down here, this is just the general capital projects interest income. Might be more than you wanted to know, but so yes, a portion of it, unless it's specifically tracked, so which the 2 were. the building facilities and the broadband.
Jennifer, in case we lose you, this is really helpful. Thanks to you and Vlad and Ben for doing this, and we look forward for sure to get the memo, including your specific recommendations. Does that just come to finance or does that go to the board too?
Finance. to begin with.
Finance?
Well, the memo will be actually to Ben and Vlad, and then, you know, from there they can decipher from there. So whatever you guys decide on our end. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
For Jennifer?
Thank you, Jen.
All right, we
Thank
will
you.
dive through this when we get it. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Sorry for the weather related items, but glad we could at least connect for a little while. So thank you guys for your patience.
Thank you.
So,
Bye-bye.
Aye.
Go ahead.
this is okay, Fran. So this is a major housekeeping that had to be done, and there's still a few more.
Yep,
Like scrubs that have to be completed before we transition into this cleared out. And once everything, like once the funds in own buckets, then throughout the years would be clear and should be easy and simple to plan, use and execute.
good.
But the next few steps, next few scrubs, I would say, we're gonna have to, once we will see what categories have how much funds, we're gonna have to go through category and just pretty much figure out what was planned throughout the years, go back like, depends, like back in 2020 or whatever,
Mhm.
and figure out what projects left that needs to be done. Maybe those projects not needed anymore.
Yeah, I mean, one way I think we might be able to do this is if we can get to that, we might just have to make a disclosure and a report to the village board that says, hey, this is the category that's not been either spent as originally intended or that was interest earned. You know, Terry, when she was answering your question, I kind of heard it's the interest can be applied anywhere, but we might have to have a policy for it, and I don't know that we do.
No, and that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, I know, I think you were right on that. So you couldn't have described it better. There's some cleanup, but I really think we're gonna reach a point where this is something we want to make sure gets presented to the board.
No, of course, and those categories that, let's say, you will find maybe not needed anymore, or we can have better use of public
Yeah,
funds
right.
to offset maybe mill road triangle, things like that. So in the long run, you're still protecting public funds and
Yep,
following the best interest for them without like borrowing and
Yep.
and things like that.
this is a big deal.
And
Thanks for
then
getting this done.
it will zero out things and just,
Yeah.
it will create a good start on.
So when
Thank you.
you're going through and doing this, like even just last night, I'm sure you've done it, just pulled up the approved CIP from October of last year to see what went into for each of these things, because I felt like a couple were redundant and they were. But surely we can go back and pull up all of the approved SIPs from the last, they must all be on a village server, right?
Yeah.
So we can go through and see exactly what money was approved for what project.
But the biggest thing, you probably witnessed that once it was approved, it was changed later on the next year, and that was the biggest thing, approved and changed, and then changed, approved, and then just kidding, let's change again.
That
Yeah.
happened every
And then
year.
like figure,
The SIP changed every year.
But let's just,
So
Right.
these
let-
would be eliminated or moved out, which is.
Right,
not
but if
that
it was,
unusual.
say last year, this is an example. In the SIP, so something we levied for in our capital projects levy was the Highway 57 trail for $239,000.
Right, and what year was it in?
So
26 or 27?
for last year, we levied for it in 2026. Or for this year, right?
26, okay.
It's already been levied for. It should be sitting in there, because it was approved.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about, when you do a SIP, you've got 5 years. I'm not talking about the years after.
Right.
Only really the approved year,
Mhm.
not the outlook. We shouldn't have this back in the 2020 SIP as part of the capital projects levy again, because it should already be sitting in there, waiting for us to use it. Do you know what I'm saying? So hopefully that would give us kind of a guideline of, we already levied for this, it should be sitting in there for this year. Let's make sure we're not levying for it again. You know, even if a project gets delayed, that money should still be sitting.
Exactly.
Waiting.
And so we
There's a
can,
couple duplicates that I wanna make sure we don't levy for again, cause as a taxpayer, that would kind of piss me off.
yeah,
You know?
I saw it the same way, because there are projects we should be able to do in 27 that we don't have to have in the levy, that have previously been paid for, that we should get done if we made the commitment to do them, or if the money's there and we aren't gonna do it, or we have a question about whether we should, then we gotta take it back to the board.
And reallocate them. funds.
Yeah.
Right, and not double them. So that's, I think this is amazing what you guys are doing, because we should be able to see pretty clearly what we've already taxed for and what should be sitting there. So having the balance in the fund, that right column that she had in her Excel sheet that showed like, this is land, this is
Uh-huh.
parks. All of those, we should be able to break down to a point, at least over the last 5 years. Hey, these were the projects that were supposed to be the numbers for. Highlight them or, you know, strike them if it happened. And if that's done, you know, if it didn't happen, we should highlight that and the board should go, or finance committee should go back and say, like you said. Shoot, this money's still sitting in here. This was a project that was supposed to happen in 2024. Do we want to do it or not? And I think part of it is the projects that we haven't done yet. We want to make sure the money's still sitting in there and didn't get shuffleboarded.
That's when you're gonna have to walk backwards and
Yeah.
see what actually happened.
So,
Just take an example, do you mind if I just-
no, please.
I mean, for example, when we're talking about the 57 project, like it's, yes, it was delayed, but there was also engineering, like, so
Right.
it's essentially that there's some funds that would be attributed to it, so it's essentially going through and identifying that we have the revenue source, right? So we levy for it. We know that the revenue source came in,
Mhm.
and then we're seeing what the expenditure went against it for the period of time for the year and from the history of it, because some of the projects probably had some expenditures that may be before the year, because we had to put in the application, there's some things that are beforehand. We might have been an unbudgeted expense, so.
But we should have that number and be levying for the difference, not the full amount again.
Right, but I'm just saying in terms of the revenue, I'm not saying like in terms of, I'm just explaining what it would kind of look like, is that there
Yeah.
might be some that it would be like an unreserved fund to initially start off, we levied for a portion of it. There just might be, like, it might be a little bit more loose for what the actual use of funds were for a project.
Ben,
That's all that I'm saying.
I agree with you that you can't always control it, but I also think what Bridget's asking for is you'd have a project sheet on every approved project. You know, just one page financial summary. This is what we levied. This is the original estimate of the project cost. This is what we spent. This is what's in the reserve, and we ought to be able to look at that. And your point's right. There could be real delays that push it out, but we should still have the money there. And if costs go up because we didn't get it done, we should be able to look at specifically what the difference is and determine how we only fund any change, right? Maybe sometimes things will go down, but that, you know, I think where we need a little more discipline, and I hope we get it with you and your team, is that when these projects are approved by the board, that you guys got your book for the year, you know, hey, here's the projects that are approved this year. Here's the timeline for these projects. And in a finance meeting on a quarterly basis, one of the things we look at is how are we doing on those capital projects? You know, which ones are on track, which ones are gonna be late, which ones don't really make sense anymore? That's a 15-minute discussion if we set it up right. And we should probably talk about it in every finance meeting.
Yeah, and things that don't, you know, projects that don't happen that we're bonding for, obviously, that's not the same.
Right.
But projects that don't happen that we taxed specifically for, so say the 57 trail project, say engineering came in at $60,000 more than we thought. So if we need to bond this year for that extra $60,000, that's fine. But rebond or levy, But re-levying for the full project amount again is
Isn't
not
that-
fine.
Is that necessary?
So totally, projects change and if things increase, and if you do it 2 years later, it's gonna cost more, it just
Right.
is. But we should know the difference.
But going back to the beginning, you guys have done really good work here working
Oh,
with Barrett.
yeah.
I'm really happy that this finally is, for the most part, done. I'll feel best when I see the report, but holy cow.
I would say it's just still halfway through,
Because of
still.
of the actions we need to take it. I like that attitude. Good.
So
What-
should
what-
we?
I have to make one comment about the SIP and what we look at in terms of just the document.
Mhm.
The document's fine, but the descriptions and the justification. And the budget impact, but more specifically, the description and justification for each one of the items, once it's entered the first time. So this is text, right? That never changes. So if you were to look at. The moment I'm in parks, so I'm at vehicles and equipment, brush chipper. So I'm on page 36. So when I look at that, just because I've been working with it for a couple of years. So this says capital improvement plan 27 through 31, right?
Mhm.
So when you look at the description and the justification. That text was probably entered back in 24. Maybe 25, whenever this item was first created. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So for someone that's not familiar with the form, for someone that's not, you would, looking at it, you would think, oh, okay, well then this is, because there's no dates on here that says. When was this first placed in the SIP? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it can be, it just would be helpful when we're writing descriptions and justifications. To include that. So, cause that's what will continue to move, this document continues to just keep moving year to year to year to year to year. Unless it goes away, maybe. But it might be helpful to, cause right now useful life is 15 years, okay. So replace 2013 Vermeer, so that was 2028, so maybe this doesn't go way back, but there's items that do.
So
So that,
maybe going forward in the description, maybe we ask our department heads. To just put a little added to SIP this and this date, and then if it's 3 years down the line, right under that, do updated as of, yeah.
So I love the idea. The only thing I would say is that we're moving to ClearGov in terms of.
oh, that's true, we don't need it.
We can
Okay.
introduce new fields. if we
Okay,
want.
yeah, we don't need it, because some of it also, when I read through it, just knowing a little bit of the history is now irrelevant or inaccurate.
So if I could, Bridget, I don't know what your timeline is today, but I just want to say, I'd really like to get to the point. Where I think one of the most important things we need to do is kind of review. The budget preliminary review and discussion where we look at the mill rates. And expenses, because quite frankly, what we levy the village. Is the starting point, right? Then once we know what the levy is and that it's reasonable, then we can figure out how we spend the capital and the debt expense associated to it and the operating expenses.
So I completely agree with you, but in order to get there, we need to know what our capital projects levy is, and it's not completed in the budget because we haven't determined what's appropriate for the CIP.
Well, that's one way to do it. The other way is to figure out what can our village citizens afford and then back into the capital plan.
I'm not saying that is not the case, I'm saying in terms of there are some projects that might be considered, absolutely necessary, and then there are some projects that can be pushed off. We can definitely look at that, and Vlad did put together a memo within the budget about what would achieve the goals that were previously discussed for, not necessarily increasing expenditures significantly and maintaining the mill rate. We have that general calculation, but, we have the number that would need to be in mind for the capital projects levy, which would be dependent on which projects, would move forward or not.
Well, okay, we can do that, but I just want to say, we've got to make sure, we don't know what's going to happen yet. We've got, I think, last year's numbers plugged for what the county does, what the technical colleges do, and what the school district's going to do. What we can control is our spending. And I just want to make sure that we don't do this in a way that gets us back to where we were a few years ago, where we had tax increases, and I've used this analogy before. I do not want to be getting chased down the street by neighbors with pitchforks, right? Because we got to do a better job than we did a few years ago. Fair enough. Then we can do whatever you want from this point.
So let's briefly go through the SIP. I do want to see, so last year, and I printed this off for myself, and I should have printed this off for everybody. When we were going through it, Denise had kind of created like the table of what was on the table for the capital projects levy for 2026, like just those items, not the things in 2028, not the things that we were bonding for. It didn't include projects that involved other revenue sources or were already budgeted for in the budget. All of those were taken out. It was just this, and hers was nice and typed up, and mine I just wrote on a piece of paper. But this is just the things that we would be levying for. So last year it came to about $850,000, and I checked last year with group SIP, and for this year it was supposed to, if we did all the things that were listed for the following year in 27, we would have gotten around 925 was up on the table for this year. I added up everything that we have on here. I took out the Parks building demo because we collected that in 2025 SIP. And I took out the Highway 57 trail $239,000+ because we already had that on last year's.
Say it again.
I said I took out the Highway 57 trails $239,197, and I took out the Parks building demo of $75,000 because we've already levied for those. So those technically, the projects haven't happened, but we shouldn't be levying for those again.
They should be in the
The
reserve.
engineering was
Mhm.
going back and forth, they keep changing,
So we might have to re-levy for new engineering costs that we incurred.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be 240,000.
and that part I don't know, I'm not involved with them, but what I heard from Julie and Denise, because they keep changing the scope of the project getting like sort of bigger than was anticipated, and engineering should be, part like, Ben, can you just maybe help me out with this a little bit? By grant definition, engineering actually covers like certain percentage of the total grant, is that correct?
So there are some variable costs, but we know it, but essentially what's being asked is just confirming that what we levied, we need to confirm what the total project costs are, and then whatever the remaining differences would be. It's just to confirm what the remaining balance would be for the capital project levy for 27, the remaining balance of the engineering. But there are some unknowns, but we have what the estimates are, but we probably want to put just a slight buffer on that for the real estate portion, but that's on a very microscopic level. But so just to confirm, so for the Highway 57 project,
but do you want it to be carried with the project? So say we're saving $450,000 over 4 years for the playground. Every year when you put $100,000 in and that makes money in interest, do you want that to stick with that number? So at the end, we really have like $475,000 for the playground?
That's when you're gonna run in probably 50 accounts or maybe more.
Would be difficult.
But
What's possible?
So the alternative is to create a
An
separate
interest
account for, correct, and then we determine, okay, what are we using that for?
Mhm.
It may not be necessarily, let's say the majority of it is for the interest earned on broadband, right? And so, to your point, it might be a smarter way to do it, right?
Well, a couple things. I like that, but you have to be careful with it. I think if you allocated it to the reserve fund and you tracked it, if you had it in one fund, it's a bucket of money that the board, the finance committee could allocate as necessary as we go out through the year. The broadband number is the biggest one, but what we got to remember with that is that interest earned is still slightly below the expense
Mhm.
of the broadband. The interest we're paid, the interest we're earning, I think you told me, unless it's changed, was about a half point below the interest we're earning. Is that correct?
Oh, no, yes, it's like 3.6 and a change toward.
So we're
that's
looking at,
the earning.
we're looking at the bucket that says, hey, we made all this money in interest earned. But if you just allocated the interest expense against that, we're underwater a little bit. So, but Louise, I agree with you that it's probably best to put the interest earned in the one bucket so that we can allocate it appropriately
Right,
in ways that allow us not to
Especially 'cause in
increase
some
the
way-
levy.
yeah, it's because in some cases, and just
Yeah.
use broadband is a good example of that.
So tentatively today, I think for the next meeting, we need to make sure we figure out where that parks building demo money is. So we don't tax for it again.
I mean, they were taxed,
Mhm.
$75,000 per tax. And then remember when we ran into historical process issue sort of mistake that we presented 1 mill rate for 2025 budget in October of 2024. But then once everything was calculated at the end, due to the corrections and TID applications, the mill rate came out different. So instead of refunding the money, which is, we would lose most of it, we ended up setting aside and promising that we're not gonna like. So yes, $75,000 were collected. They should be part of that reserve,
Right.
so we do not have to ask for $75,000 again. Maybe we're gonna have to probably depend into reserves and cover the difference. Because I don't know, is it going to be 75 or maybe it's gonna be more?
That's what we can look at what the total project costs are, see how much revenue is collected, see what the difference is. If there's an overage, it'd be part of the capital. Otherwise, if it's fine, it's fine.
Can I ask a general question? All these, Vlad, and if you, all these bank accounts should have 40 of them, 50 of them, whatever you said. They all can't be local, are they?
I tried to have as many locals as possible.
So if some bank is offering a better rate, if you've got a 2, 3, 5 year CD, but they're not local, are they even considered? Do we even do that?
Yes and no. So for example, we do work with ADM.
Yes, I was just gonna suggest it.
Yeah, and the way they present in better CD rates, but then they're not talking about their fees.
Mhm.
So by the time you like CD something out with them, and
But sometimes the ones they flush out are pretty good, that even with their fees, you're still coming out ahead.
it depends.
From what I've, with our association, I thought we've done pretty good with them.
I mean, we do have a pretty good relationship with Nicolay Bank.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I'm in contact with a few other villages. They're not getting even like a fraction of what we get.
Good.
No, that's
Keep
good,
it.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
We just brought, can I have just 1 second?
Mhm.
I did get a neighbor handed this to me last night, and I just want to remind us all that I thought we were actually, our goal was to keep the levy flat. I see that it's kind of proposed it's going up 55,000. And it's because we kept the mill rate flat. But a distinguished neighbor of mine gave me a chart that shows among Ephraim, Liberty Grove, Gibraltar, Egg Harbor, Bailey's Harbor, Town of Egg Harbor, and Jacksonport, we are still the highest mill rate among those villages and towns by a lot, although Egg Harbor is trying to catch up to us. But we are substantially higher, so, I mean, I'm not completely comfortable with just keeping our mill rate flat, is my comment, and I think we have to be careful. Now, this mill rate calculation also includes the county, NWTC, and the school district, and we can't control them, but that also impacts all of these except for a half of Egg Harbor, which splits school districts. So just so we keep that in mind as we move forward here, we are the highest mill rate in Northern Door. And I have copies of this if anybody wants it.
Yeah, I just provide a quick statement disregarding.
Yep.
So just to recapitulate what we're doing here. So in terms of the CIP, so what was presented, we have all the 27 projects. It was identified, for modifying items regarding the Highway 57, for the park building demo. I guess what the clarifying questions are is it would be adding the public restroom for the estimate for the marina portion, attributing it, not for marina funds. And did we want to do anything in terms of waterfront park allocation? It was pushed to 28 currently.
You mean the playground equipment?
Yes, for the waterfront park playground equipment, it was pushed to 28. We're starting the accumulation of what we would be doing over a 4-year period. So it'd be $100,000 collected, and then we ultimately result in a playground being built after we've collected it for multiple years. Do we want to start that in 27? Or push it to 20, or continue with having it be 28 be identified?
I personally am okay pushing a little bit. I love the playground. And I know it's a few years out still before we would replace it. But I don't know, I hate to replace something that's not broken.
It's not broken, it's just dated and it just needs some, it's not, but it has a finite amount of space. That's what we got.
Right.
The footprint isn't getting bigger. It's just the equipment that's gonna change slightly.
And marina restrooms.
So it may not be 400, maybe less, I don't know.
Right, and
The marina restrooms, that's huge.
I was gonna say, and it doesn't have to be 150. Maybe we think the estimate is 250,000. We should have a better number for that, I would say, in the next month or two.
Well, based on a pretty
Before
recent
it was
update for
approved.
the ones at the ball field, which are pretty, bare balls, 250 or so is in the 300 range. That's pretty. We had 3 different people look at it. I mean, John Sawyer did it. He did the subs. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna get much cheaper.
But we can ensure that goes in, and then just once we have everything through, that we've identified all the projects, the estimates are in. Essentially, what we'd be looking at is for, the capital projects levy, what portion we'd be attributing, to the budget based off of that number, and that value would be put in for future budget consideration.
And then the other one is, do we want to allocate something in 2027 to make an improvement to the village hall?
So that was put on for 2028 for having some additional items regarding the engineering.
Right, for the whole building, but I think the village hall's been pushed back like 4 years in a row.
Yes, it has been pushed back every year. Again, that's
Let me just add a little bit of context to that, and that was a discussion that the board, I think finance too, and I don't think it was planned, had with, there was an ad hoc committee for Village Hall. And the discussion was that they need to also raise funds. Which they did not do. There was really no.
For the
do
total
it.
renovation, they're just talking about, fixing the ceiling.
But for anything, you know, and so the conversation was. You know, and I mean, Patrice was chair of the ad hoc, which I think is still in existence. And so there was a agreement that you guys need to get organized and go out there and, you know, figure out a way to. And I mean, really nothing was done. So just so that it wasn't like everybody just said no.
Right, but
You know?
let's think too, A, it's a volunteer committee of people who are just interested in saving it, and B, the village owns the building and is under a certain obligation to maintain it.
I don't
And-
disagree with you. I just don't think it
I just-
wasn't like just pull the plug, we're not
Oh,
doing
for
it.
sure,
Too
but
bad.
no other building that the village owns, we don't ask people to go out and fundraise to fix
Except
things.
the
Like for the library, we could tell the library committee, well, if you guys wanna pay the library,
Right.
you need to go fundraise for it.
Well,
I'm
the
just
ice rink
saying
would
that
be a big.
if we're being apples to apples.
Well,
I would think.
just one other comment on the village hall. We know from past experience, and my guess is it's still the case. If there was a threat of that building coming down, we'd have the same energy we had in the past with people saying they want us to do something with the building. So clearly, I think all of the committees and the village board has heard that residents
Mhm.
want it kept.
Right.
I think the challenge, and I appreciate Patrice being specific about a request for repair, and if there
It's
is some.
bad, she's
If,
right.
if there is a maintenance item or a safety issue, we probably have no choice but to do it. But the thing I'm uncomfortable about is that it seems like the better plan would be to have comprehensive engineering and to lay out what we need to do with the building, how much it's gonna cost us, how we might be able to do it in phases to minimize the expense, and maybe potentially look at whether or not others want to contribute. But you know, there aren't too many historical societies, there aren't too many ice rink committees that can go out and get the kind of money that.
I
they
completely
got.
understand. And by the way, there are plans.
Okay, I didn't know that.
There are
So-
plans. There
So
were
they know,
plans
they
done
they
a
know
while
that.
back. So
Okay.
if we could probably pull all of that together and see, so it was very hodgepodge, disorganized. Sort of way of, with the, what do we give the village hall every year? 15,000? What do we spend on it?
For maintenance, we're
15?
talking about?
Maintenance,
Yeah,
15, 25 grand. So what we had to do first of all was shore up the basement. Because it was leaking just because of, because there was a time we used the basement a lot. We used it during
Mhm.
Fall Fest. There was the pancake breakfast was down there.
Down there.
Did Patrice give us a number? I don't think she did for that.
She
ceiling.
did.
No, she didn't. I mean, it's awful. It's a popcorn ceiling that looks like asbestos. It's terrible. She's not wrong. And then also we've on and off maintained or tried to repair the elevator, which has been challenging.
Well, maybe we could bump up the maintenance number.
Well, if I'm looking at it correctly, for buildings, village hall account under general government, I think repairs and maintenance being listed for $1,000.
Yeah, but if you pull it all together, maybe I'm thinking utilities and everything else.
I mean, yeah, if we have like contracted services.
How much?
13,700 budgeted for.
All right, so 14, 15 grand, something like that, but that's probably utilities and everything else, and it's not really used
Well,
that much.
and maybe, in 2027, we're talking about an admin building, we're talking about taking the old admin building, the marina building, there's a lot of irons in the
Yeah.
fire. Maybe this is we start engineering that in 2028 and we do it in 2029, like. I get where everybody's coming from.
You gotta pick your priorities.
Well,
Yeah, it's gonna be too much and we're not gonna get it done, we're gonna end up pushing it again.
Well, also, it's not a safety issue, it's aesthetics, without a doubt, and it's awful.
Yeah.
But if we were to make a move and do something there, we're painting a ceiling that may be very different, and we painted it, and what do we paint it for when we're gonna do something? I know that is wishful thinking, but
So right now, I think I'm hearing that we're gonna keep it engineering in 2028, potential investment in 2029. If anybody is strongly disagrees with me on that, let me know, just to keep.
This
the
for the
ball
village hall?
rolling, the
Yeah.
village
Yeah.
hall. I still have in here 150 for marina bathrooms and 100 grand for the playground equipment. If anybody would like to push the playground equipment back another year, I'm honestly okay with that.
Pushing it back.
I think we,
I think we're pushing it on a number here.
yeah, I think that'd be a good one.
Do
to
we
push
need to
back.
change the
Wait,
bathroom?
1 second, sorry.
I'm not sure if it's gonna matter.
Hmm.
Can I just be a citizen and father and say something about playground?
Sure.
I'm sorry, kids absolutely love it. It's not Rolls Royce, but it's good enough and it's perfect for them to keep active. As it is, it's good.
Mhm.
It's very good. What actually makes, I would say like hurtful to see and like brings frustration is the garbage that flows from, all the to-goes from Wild Tomato and Stabur.
Mm.
It's just, gosh, it looks
It
like a
overflows.
dumpster sometimes.
Mhm.
And,
So do we need to add another garbage,
I think we just need to add some kind of concrete rules. But right into the face of, tourists and whoever just trashing that place, because they leave everything on the tables.
well, I've walked by there many times, especially on a Saturday afternoon, and they're overflowing, and the guys are there twice a day on Saturdays to pick up in the summer. So we could add another one, we could add signage, but,
Like people
you know, we
smoke,
talked
right?
about, you know, just, pizza box
So I think.
things,
I,
anyway.
sorry, we have so much to discuss.
I know we do.
also still,
Yeah.
I think something maybe we sent to parks.
But I think it's a good point,
Mhm.
and we should try and figure something out,
It's
because I don't like
going-
it either.
It's been going on for,
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years.
So we push
Um,
back.
So
Or whatever.
are we pushing playground equipment back to 2028?
I think we are.
Okay, if there's an opportunity for us to, you know, maybe we come in under budget on many other things, if there's an opportunity to bring it back before we finalize this in October, we'll keep an earmark on it. Before we head into 2027 budget, I'm gonna take a 2 minute break.
Yeah.
And if you think of anything else we needed to answer for the SIP, besides taking that Marina Boardwalk off, that already happened.
I ran out of juice, so I mostly have hard copies now, so bear
We
with
need
me.
a, charger, I have one.
Well, I need like an extension.
I know.
There we
Well,
go.
you've
It's all
gotta-
right. It's all right. It's
That's
all
why
right.
we need, you know, and I have a bunch of those things at home. I'll bring another one.
If you
If you
have
don't,
your charger,
I do.
I will get you the extension.
Oh, you're the man.
You want me to build my barn, I'll help you build yours, okay?
We're Amish now. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. You might even be able to still use it. I might be able to.
Gary, just, for your background, what we went through with that cash reserve fund and that reconciliation, not an audit. When Vlad got here, that was a significant concern, and they've spent hours and hours because I won't let it go. I'm like a, you know, dog biting on their leg. It bothered me and I was very nervous about it. So I'm anxious to see Beard's final report, but it is encouraging. It is
But-
encouraging.
Same, bothered me.
Yeah,
Because, you know, you just need to know what's going on.
yeah,
Well, it's nice to know that, say,
Yeah.
0.8,
yeah,
5 on cash sitting.
right,
Cash on hand,
yeah,
always, cash on hand is always nice.
Yep. yeah. Okay, I'll be right back.
Sorry, I hope nobody feels like I'm cutting them off.
No, I don't.
Just
Right.
otherwise,
You
we're a
gotta
group of people that I
manage
could tell can talk, so,
No.
you know, if we let it, it could go 4 hours and we
No,
don't
no,
want it to
no.
go 4 hours.
You have to manage it.
I would like to wrap this up by 1 if possible.
That'd be
It'd
great.
be great.
Yeah.
I think what I'm gonna end up doing is uploading the recording to YouTube,
I did.
just because I'm already on like 6 files.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good idea.
For this one, I'm gonna put you off. Upload, I'm talking about that, right? And yeah, and then for the control, yes, I'm just gonna be referring to like talking about it, saying here's what they please don't have now. And then just keep it now, have the background. So.
Actually, of all the things I think we could successfully fundraise for, I think the playground equipment would be easier.
Fundraise? Yeah, I mean, they did a lot with, I'll have to, I know a few friends that were on the committee in Bailey's,
Yeah.
because the town didn't pay for,
I
they
was
paid
gonna
for some,
say,
but not a lot. And
Everybody.
I think that was
such a
$500,000.
Visible, usable thing. I donate to playground equipment. You know what I mean? It's an easy.
But we have
fun-
to, you still gotta come up with a plan.
Right,
What are we doing? You know,
yeah.
which, you know, the playground, yeah, we just need to come up with a plan.
Yeah, like maybe the
Information
village
should have
should be a
this-
certain amount and the community can try. Check, just have a play of that.
Right. Mhm.
That's why I don't feel as bad about pushing the money a little bit, because I feel like the
Mhm. Well, we should talk about grants too, not necessarily just for that, but.
I said, sorry, I hope none of you feel like I'm cutting you off,
No,
just that in the interest of
I completely
it
get
not
it.
being super long. Okay, everybody ready? We're gonna move on to 6C, 2027 budget prelim review and discussion.
So I'm just gonna tee it off here and then bring it over to Vlad. So essentially where we're at in the budgeting process is that we have sent this out to.
You can say it again, sorry.
Sure. All right, coming back at 12:20, we will go to 6C, 2027 budget preliminary review and discussion.
All right, so I'm just gonna start it off here and I'm going to tip it off over to Vlad, but essentially what we have here is the 2027 preliminary budget. What we've done to date is that we've sent out the information over to department directors and we've had their input on some of the specific line items. And some things that are notable exclusions or things that need to be included for future considerations would be for the for the capital project levies based off of the CIP portion. That's kind of why we were discussing the CIP first, so we'd be able to determine how much we'd be including as part of the budgeting process. We didn't receive the personnel budgeting information yet from our HR consultant, but we just received it like pretty much after this was published. So that's something that we're going to be able to work on and finalize those numbers following this as well. So really, it's just meant to be a preliminary consideration of the budgeting process and what we have. And then Vlad did put together some information about, you know, some methodologies that could be utilized from the finance committee to essentially look at what we have as our final target and then how we can work back based off of that as well. So before Vlad goes into it, I mean, is there just any preliminary questions about what is presented?
I have one dumb question, but I'm sure there's an easy answer. But the 25 tax levy was 4,000,001, I think. In this document, the preliminary review and discussion of the budget, you're proposing a $55,000 increase, but the actual expense budget was 3.7 million for the same period. What's roughly the difference? Revenue versus levy, or budget versus we've got an operating budget of 3.7. We're talking about we tax people 4,011,011. What's the difference? The 300,000?
What page are you on?
I'm reading the Village of Sister Bay, it's page 17 in the packet. And I'm comparing it to the attachment that Ben published, which was the mill rate calculation, which gave the estimate, or at least I believe the estimate of the levy.
So that is that's the staff report of,
Yes, staff report.
so that is just like the quarter to date. So that's not, the starting on page 17 is not associated with what we're talking about for the budget, proposed 27 budget.
Okay, but the levy, the proposed 2027 levy is for, if I got this right, at the draft, right? This is a draft in the staff report. The proposed levy is 4,066,000. And I believe we state in that same document that, yeah, it's 55,532 more than the 26 levy.
I can explain that.
Please, I'm sure I'm just not,
My $55,000, that's pretty much like in simple explanation, that's a wiggle room.
yeah.
That's how much you can go based on, because, you know, the assessment of the village went up almost like $11 million. So from, 826 million last year to 837 million, roughly, around it. So because I'm looking at this as a simple mathematical equation, that's the only way for me to things will make sense. Mill rate is known, and we know the total value of the village, how much the levy is. So you just take the value times the mill
Right.
rate, and that's your levy. So, and then you compare levy from projected levy for 2027 to 2026 levy, and that's how you come up with the difference of $55,000. Knowing without even finishing up most of the work with the budget, we already know there will be some increases, wage increases, like operational increases. So that's the $55,000 extra we can count on based on.
Well, hold on. We can't count on anything extra, right? I mean, I got the formulas. But the value that you calculated from the appraiser, we did a complete revaluation again in 26. Is that, do I have that correct, or is that in 27?
They're in the process, I don't
Yeah,
expect.
So are those is the new valuation, the $11 million increase, is that the new valuation?
It's the preliminary, the final is gonna be August.
August 15th. So this is,
So, I mean, it's a complex equation, because if the value of the village goes up $11 million, I don't know what percent that is, but if that percentage is greater than our cost, it doesn't necessarily mean much has to change. And it kind of makes me question, why isn't the mill rate going down, right? Because normally, when valuations jump up in those 5-year reviews, you'd see the mill rate come down a little bit, because you got more value, you're taxing at a rate that's a little bit lower, but you're still generating the same revenue.
And I'm not saying,
Bless you.
not the final.
Okay.
That's just a suggestion and like.
Okay, fair enough. I'll leave it at that. Let me just ask, what's the difference though, if we look at the budget versus the levy? Because the budget this year is what? 3.7 million, isn't that our budget?
Are you talking about what we're looking at in terms of revenue or just? in
No,
terms
our
of
cost
allocation?
budget,
Okay,
our cost budget
Our cost
that
budget
we publish on our website for 2026.
is broken down, it's 2.6 and a change plus 7 operational one, which is part of that goes into the capital.
Right.
620 goes into capital improvement.
Right.
And then you have 2 million and a change to work with, only on the taxes, property taxes. Then you do have also $790,000 on the debt service levy
Expense,
expense, and then also separately, the TID 1 and TID 2. Altogether, you take the general fund, which is with capital, plus $790,000 of debt, plus TIDs, it makes up to 4 million and whatever, 11.
okay,
And
we're close enough for now, but I may come back and ask you another question on this, because I just want to make sure that typically the levy is as close as reasonable
Mhm.
to the actual operating budget, right?
To some extent, after when you're taking that service out, after when you're taking TIDs out.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
And I'm just not seeing the whole formula, so I don't want to hold this off.
but just to start it out, laying out in comparison to last year, so now we know, at least comparing to last year mill rate, that's what we have, we do have $55,000 wiggle room. You don't have to use that, but it's available, could be available. And then once the whole budget is in place, you pretty much will see, you might need more, you might need less. If you need less, then you can lower mill rate. If you need more, then an option is either ask for it or cut the cost.
That's right. There's always an extra option. Either increase taxes, keep them the same, or lower them.
I mean,
with service potentially.
Yes. Okay,
just so we're on the same page, Mike, I do not want the property tax to go up.
I know you're a property taxpayer here. That's what I love about you. Among other things.
Just to know.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as the initial budget for 2027, are there any standout items that anyone has questions on? Obviously, okay, so just as an overview, this is kind of, have department heads kind of gone through all of this and have tried to make sure that they're not increasing anything over this past year?
Marina and utilities, and there are some increases.
And the other department heads have not gone through it yet?
We're gonna be sitting down with Eric individually just based off of this budget, but we've taken a preliminary look at it. So we're gonna be sitting down with him as well, but we also, the main things that are gonna be there are like if, for example, when we're talking about some of the active operations, like there hasn't been a lot, there has been some deviations in what we've been looking at in terms of what we budgeted as a practice and what we actually spent for that. It's just a consideration of, you know, if we wanted to maintain what the current budgeted item are, or if we would cut back services for some of those items.
So Louise has been a great advocate of, you don't increase the budget. We evaluate what people actually spent and determine whether or not they've earned the opportunity to get a little more money or their budget goes down. I mean, that's, I think, the operating assumption we have to have. And we spent how much time on this last year, Louise? And you were crystal clear on that. I agreed with you completely.
I just wanted a projection for the end of the year to see what. it
Yeah,
looked like
I think
versus the prior year and versus the budget, because that's how I was taught.
I think philosophically, that has to be the way that it works, because otherwise we had last year, Ben, department heads increasing their number from their budget number, even though they actually spent and operated their department with less. So that's one thing. The second thing is I kind of like to know, our water and wastewater bills are very high. You know, some of the highest in the region, maybe the state. And I'd like to understand what we're doing about that, because I hear about it all the time from my neighbors. So, and I can't give them the excuse it's an enterprise fund, so it's not important. It is important. People think of it as a tax, because you can't live here without paying for it.
Well, they're all going up in the region. I haven't done the research to know where we rank in terms of high as a percent of. Like, how are people measuring it? Do you know what I mean? High compared to, or high.
Quarterly billing.
Yeah, but high as a percent of what? Like, what's the KPI for it? Like, how do you measure? I'm just asking. I really truly don't know. Yes, they've gone up everywhere, every village.
It's not going up. I think it's what you're paying per unit of measure is
So-
higher here.
We could look at that and see.
Yes.
So, and see what that, because I don't know how to measure it. I don't know if you're higher than anybody else compared to what? What are you measuring? I mean, is it apples to apples? Do you know what I mean? So that's worth looking at, I think. But anyway, back to the budget and back to looking at it. So if we're but if right here we have year to date through June, and then, we have the budget, and then and Flad's done a great job of saying, hey, look, this is how everybody's performing to budget. So they've used 48% of their budget, 73% of their budget, etc. So we're going with the assumption that the budget's right. Which I think is always dangerous, which is why, do you know what I mean? That's why it's always, if we can, it's always a good idea to then say, okay, where are we projecting we're gonna end for the year? How does that compare to the prior year? And then how does that compare to the budget? That is, I think, Mike, what is really the difficult thing. Because I think that's what's always been made clear to me is that it's a timing thing. And that oftentimes, because of the nature of our business here in the village, you should be. Again, what's the KPI? Should you be only at 40% of your budget in June? And again, that depends on the department, so it's complicated.
What I would say, for the first 6 months of the year, you have one tourist month. And it's the least busy out of tourist months, as far as use budget. And then
Yeah,
July,
September's
August,
bigger than
September,
June.
I would say September's.
Yeah, September's,
So
yeah.
it does skew the numbers for sure.
Mhm.
But no, I know it's an idea.
So that's what's scary for me is to say, we're assuming the budget is correct in every category. So we're measuring against a budget that we assume is correct, create a new budget. That just was always my pushback. So in general, it looks like the 2026 budget for revenues is 14.7 million, 14.9, roughly flat, against a budget of 14.7. And we're currently at 4.1 million, right?
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, I'm under the governmental funds. So I can go back to let's go back over. Okay, so the 27 budget's 3.7. Am I right? For the general funds total budget. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right here. I thought it was 3.7 and 26, right?
Yeah, go back here. It's really sensitive when you change the page, when you change the
Are
pages.
you on the packet or the file?
I'm on the packet on page 3.
So when it's the budget,
The budget packet that was linked.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
budget
correct?
packet that was
Yeah.
linked, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to be looking at?
Yep, we're trying to figure out what page you're on.
I just started on page 3.
that'd be the notice of public hearing page.
Yep.
Mhm. Right, okay.
This is a document that goes out. This is just a boilerplate kind of document that would go, that's why it's, the information up there is from, prior year, but,
So, Vlad, can I ask a quick question while we're talking about actuals to budgets? If we go to page 4 of that same area, so next page. Up at the top, you have the ending years and the actuals, and you see 2024 actuals and then 2025 actuals. The revenue side, it looks like they're different and that makes sense. But if you go down to 2024 actuals and 2025 actuals on expenditures, they're identical. I'm wondering if maybe that section of 2025 wasn't updated. I can't imagine that they were exactly the same as the year before to the dollar.
Apologies, I'm gonna have to.
No, you're fine.
Sure.
I'm sure, and see, this will be why this ClearGov is great, because I'm sure updating all these spreadsheets is giant. On page 4.
Yeah.
The actuals, the revenues are different. Which makes sense, they should be different. The expenditures are different for the 2 years. My guess is that in 2025's, it was, right. And we don't need it right this moment or anything, it just has a.
We can same formula on 2025 was sequel to maintenance shape.
Right. Yeah.
And I shifted it a lot. And shift it there.
Yeah.
But that's just a reflection. You would go to wave. So, not just the summaries, not to break down, of course. But we will-
Oh, down below. Yeah, it probably just didn't populate the top, whatever.
This is the sensitivity part of the spreadsheets. You add something, it shifts around.
Yeah, okay,
And it wasn't finalized yet, so it's still.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't-
yeah. No, I figure, I just wanted to let you know.
So like,
in case it-
like page 12, that you're good with those 2 columns, the what, 26 and 27,
I was on page 4, but I'm now on
Okay.
page 12.
they're all.
but that's for,
Oh, these are different. I'm told,
and that's for general government. I was just looking at the,
the overview.
the overview, the recap. Because on page 3, there is a projected 2026. Third column. Where we're gonna end up with general fund revenues and expenditures. Against budget. But it's again, the expenditures are. It looks funky.
Yeah, I think as we go through with our departments,
Page 3.
anywhere that they can reduce money
Okay, so
without
3 and
being
4, okay, gotcha.
buffer problem.
Yeah, well, I think that's just some of the things that there has been, you know, funds that have not been utilized within a specific budget category for operations. Like if we're talking holistically for the Parks and Streets Department, you know, there's quite a few areas where there are deficiencies, but frankly, the main area that would be needed in terms of assets would be street reconstruction projects for maintaining that, having more than $100,000 in terms of the capital investment each year, which oftentimes was not actually allocated at the end of the budgeting process. That would be something that has been an ongoing request for 4 years that could be seen as necessary, rather than some of the other budget items that have had deficiencies, right? So that's an example, is if we wanted to kick up some of the street project funds.
I asked this, I think, at our last meeting, are we spending and completing the street projects that were in last year's budget? Because we're now in July, almost August.
So the way that it was is that we haven't put specific projects necessarily, except for the really large projects such as like the Mill Street.
Okay.
Mill Road project. So the Mill Road project is specifically identified on the CIP. The other projects are identified as $100,000 road maintenance fund. That we.
But have they started doing those?
No, because last year, last year it was reallocated midway through the year.
No. It
Well,
was.
the Parks Committee.
No, Parks Committee specifies the
Specific
streets.
roads.
I would have to see exactly.
Yeah.
Again, this is just conversations with Eric about what happened
Well, he
last
was at the
year.
meeting.
Yeah,
I would have to review it on a granular level, but,
and
Is this gonna come to Parks next week?
well, it was part of the recommendation from the village board that we should look at our road and vehicle plans potentially.
Well, we looked at it for this year already. And those were in a plan, and there were 10 roads or so we picked out, Mike, 6 or 8.
yeah, we went through
That's
an
what we were
exercise,
asking about is, have those been completed?
right?
I don't think they've been started.
But-
Well, I shouldn't say that, I don't know.
If I could just back this up for 1 second, because this is a big item, because it's a lot of expense. It was last year, I thought, in this same budget process, that Parks submitted a recommendation on specific sections of road, working with Eric, which ones needed
Right,
repair,
He gave us
like
pictures.
repaving the most.
you gave us pictures, remember?
And we then sent a recommendation to the board
Mhm.
that they do this.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't know, Louise, is what happened after we made that recommendation, because I assumed they approved that, because it was the roads of the approvals we gave last year were kind of in the run rate of the parks budget.
Right,
So if it was in the run rate, it didn't really impact the levy. And we didn't do as much as we wanted to do, but we did as much as we could do, is how I thought you led us through that.
right. So I just assumed that they,
I just noticed because I haven't seen any streets being worked on, and I noticed some of our neighbors are, other villages.
I know
Well-
Eric was working behind the scenes, getting quotes and working out like the best price. That's what.
so you think it's still in the process of being done?
I believe so.
Don't know, we need to ask, okay.
But he's working on getting prices all put together and
Okay,
the best.
So as far as parks goes in the parks budget, we've got parks coming up in a couple weeks. Is their budget gonna be on the, will their budget be able to be on the agenda for parks?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly can. Like I
'Cause it's
said, I'd
Monday.
really like it to be in terms of the street projects, that if we can revisit what the plan was and see if that's something that would be a consideration.
No, what I'm asking is the Monday, the meeting for parks is coming up this coming Monday. Will Eric be able to review his budget with us? At parks?
Oh, that would be helpful.
We can have yeah, I mean, we can have the preliminary version and we can see if we can meet and have a proposed version. Yeah, I mean.
Well, that's what we did last year. I didn't know, because he came twice.
Mhm.
In August, he came and we reviewed it with him and we discussed making cuts or, just in general. But we really got into the details of it, and then he came, and then we discussed it again at the September meeting, which this year we did agree would be did we move to 7th or 8th? I can't remember, gotta look at my notes, but either way, that first week in September.
Yeah, I will let's plan on it then.
Well, if he hasn't planned on it yet, I don't know if you'll be prepared for parks, but,
Well, I mean, we can try to have a meeting this week that we would have it be
okay,
something where we take a look at it. It's just one of the biggest
I know,
portions of it, and that we need to
right,
make sure that we're looking at what the priorities are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a static budget from what was there from last year with some small changes.
well, okay,
We gotta fund our priorities essentially.
aware. Okay,
So, just really quick, and then I think we won't dive too deep into the budget now until the rest of the department heads have really got a chance to go through and see what they actually need and what they could possibly cut. I think that would be a good idea.
So it's only parks, so marina and utility have both essentially done their portion so far.
Okay, so we can check marina and utilities on here. One, I'm looking at general government on page 20. at the bottom line, total general government expenditures, and I didn't look through the full, every number, the breakdown, there was a lot of pages in this packet overall. If you look at the actuals down at the bottom, we're, you know, obviously inflation and all the things, in 2024, it was one of our highest at 725. And then it dropped down in, you know, the following year. Right now, we're projecting almost 1 million in total general government expenditures. I wonder if we can whittle that one down a little bit. It seems like we were running in the 600s for quite a number of years, and all of a sudden we're hitting close to 1 million.
I would look at wages, cause some
I
of
would
that,
say, well, and I know there was a little flip this year, and we were absorbing some
right,
additional wage costs.
yep,
I wouldn't think that that would necessarily carry through to 2027.
right,
So I'm hoping we could eliminate almost $100,000 from that
Right.
number.
right.
So
Bridget,
just one to put on the back burner.
Are you, you're in the budget
In the budget.
in
packet.
government fund summary?
Page 20.
Yep, so, yeah. Oh, this was Village of Sister Bay 2026 annual budget, and then it lists the 2027 number in red to the right.
And those numbers will be lower because as you remember, Julie's gonna fall off.
Correct,
That
Right.
part was not in works yet.
So for the personnel budgeting and things like that, does that go through another company? It helps us pull those numbers together,
yes,
like an HR outsource, and then that gets put in here?
She's getting new rates, and
Okay.
then based on rates, I do calculate like per department, per employee. And then
And then
allocating them out to the budget.
So that's not in here yet.
including benefits too, cause she rolls benefits in.
Yeah, the updated information, so that's what you're waiting on
Okay,
HR consulting to provide.
okay, and that's totally fine. I just, when we're looking at this, I don't know if these are actual numbers from them or if that's what they were waiting on, or, you know, cause I get it's preliminary and it's great to see some estimated numbers, and then hopefully we get, you know, some obviously are we can take down. Do we know where Marina starts in this one? What, you said they were up, Marina's was over budget from last year?
For some reason, pages not coming up.
I'm not seeing the page.
The
numbers
page
either.
numbers aren't on it, I have it.
So we're
Just-
starting on 60.
So do I.
It's right after collection.
So if you go to page 66.
Oh, okay, 66 and the PDF.
Yeah,
That is very helpful.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, that was a lot of pages.
Was there, okay, just having talked with him, was there anything glaring that put Marina way over?
Computer software. It's not.
Yes, wages.
Because, yeah, you're right, so. Expense summary, all the way at the bottom, it's the last page in the packet. The very top of that page is a summary of the expenses. So if you're looking, 2025 was the highest before this, and the actual expenses were 810,000. And the 2027, 2 million, that includes the building, right?
Yeah, it's 1.26 for now, or something around that. Under supplies, materials, maintenance.
And just for clarity, nothing out of the Marina budget expenditures wise comes out of the village's pocket. Like the Marina should be a completely self-sustaining,
As
They-
long as it doesn't. stay
Oh,
out there.
right. But I mean, all, you know, even if they're over, it's up to the Marina to make that up.
Well, if they can't make it up, it's
Then we're on
the village is, if you want to call it a co-signer
yeah,
on everything. So I mean, the other alternative is for raising revenues to do that or to cut expenses.
Raise revenues already this
Yep.
year.
So, but I'm just saying in terms of that is,
Yeah.
yes, it would be up to the marina, but if the marina, like, it absolutely no way, technically, they can't default. And it would be up to the village to cover the expenses.
I recently had this discussion with Nate. And I'm gonna, my personal feelings here are gonna show, I apologize, but the enterprise entities, water, wastewater, and the marina are not independent entities. They cannot authorize spending without approval by the board. And they are fully subsidiaries of the village. So we live by their decisions, and there has to be, and there is some question about governance between those entities and the village board, which I think the village board has to consider. But you said it right, Ben. They are impacting our debt expense line, which is growing. They impact village risk as they borrow money. And they can potentially impact other village financials if their lease expense, their charges to voters and their services to voters become uncompetitive. So those are things that have to be considered, and I just want to make sure both of those entities feel some accountability to the village residents and to the village taxpayers. That's my commentary. I apologize, but I think that's important.
No, that's fair. If a giant storm comes in and it ruins half the docks in the marina, all those bills still need to
Yeah.
get paid. No, you're not wrong. Okay, so I mean, from here, I mean, I don't think we need to though dive in line by line or anything. Is there any other major things we want to look at today? And then I assume during the next meeting, we'll get updated numbers as they come in.
Yep, for the next meeting, we would be able to have additional information from all departments. If there is an opportunity to do any cost reduction, we can potentially take a look at that. And then also we'd have the personnel budgeting, having that completed as well. So by the next meeting, we should have a pretty good draft, and then by September, based off of comments, we should be sitting pretty well in terms of the budgeting process.
Okay.
Fingers crossed, I will.
I guess the only thing I'd like to ask is, again, if we have any updates to the statement of assessment, so what do we know? We know for sure that the value of property in Sister Bay went up 11% between residential, commercial, manufacturing, agricultural, all those categories. It's mostly residential.
$11 million.
$11 million.
Yeah.
Excuse, I apologize, $11 million. So
this
we,
is preliminary, but that being said, it's probably gonna be pretty close, but we know in August 15th when it's officially.
okay,
But
but this is the appraiser's report, gets submitted to the Department of Revenue.
there is an opportunity for some deviation.
Adjustments, okay,
But with that being said, if we can assume that that's the working number, which is why we're using it as a working number until we definitively know from the published DOR report.
because you and Vlad are here after we had some tough years. The only thing I'm trying to say is we have to look at this process from the taxpayer's perspective. I don't want to surprise people with unreasonable increases in their property taxes. People still feel like a couple of years ago, we had a couple of years of substantial increases that raised the bar, right? And it's just like inflation. Once the number goes up, it never goes down, right? And increases from that point on, percentage increases are more dollars, simple math. So I just think we have to be really careful because we're trying to catch up with where we were. We're trying to step backwards, maybe I should say, to get down to a level that more of our residents thought was reasonable and affordable, because it was not pretty here when we had those 2 years in a row where property taxes took steep jumps. And we have to respect the fact that we can't control this, and we might have to communicate with our residents If it's other taxing entities, the other three that we keep talking about, the county, the schools, and the technical colleges, if they're raising their tax rates, we need to make sure our citizens understand we've been keeping our budget in control.
Right, I think people have the, and, more in big government than here. But people just have a general sense of, oh, it's government, they just spend excessively. We don't want to fit into that category, all we want to run lean and mean whenever possible, and I think you guys totally get that. So, as we kind of hone in on these numbers, anywhere that we can decrease while still keeping our little rainy day fund over on the side is great. Any other questions on the preliminary budget review?
So just so we understand, I know we have a gap here of a couple of weeks before we're gonna meet again. But I just want to make sure we understand the expectations. I'm assuming it's primarily around refinement, where we're gonna have a little more information. We'll have updates on the actual spending. We'll have the update from the state because we'll be after August 15th. So we should be getting pretty close in the next meeting to numbers that we can work with to try and manage the levy as efficiently as possible. Is that fair?
I was on the phone, last week with your, and I guess his name is Andrew. He promised that he's gonna send me either on Thursday or Friday, some of the, all I spent value numbers for kids. So then we will, certain things, I mean, pretty much everything's gonna be known. How much of the levy is gonna go toward the tier 1, tier 2, then capital, general fund, and debt levy. So then we will have your picture. Like Adam used to provide the breakdown. So that I will be able to know.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're just waiting for some additional information, whether or not it's just that we need a little more time, or if it's a specific milestone that we need to meet based off of external parties, but yeah, it should be sitting in a pretty good place, and if it, hopefully we're getting to the point where it's the minor tweak, so we've talked about the major project, which is a large portion of what we're talking about for the budget, and then we're talking about personnel budgeting, which is something that we need to incorporate in. And then if there's anything where we can potentially identify decreases, if it's just something that's not being utilized, that can be, something that's proposed as well.
One last ask is that I think I saw in our documents that we publish our debt service just under $800,000, $790,000. But that does not include the tip debt, right? I think that's another 600,000, something like that. What might be helpful is a total debt schedule. And the schedule includes operating budget, TIF, marina, municipal water, wastewater. So because, we have a $4 million, but let's say we got a $4 million budget. I think at the total line, we have to be watching debt expense to make sure it's not taking away our ability to spend money on operating budgets. And the only way to do that is with a kind of detailed debt schedule, Vlad, where we can look at all of that. Because I think if we added it all in, it's higher than 40% of our budget.
So we do have a long-term, so I mean, just because you don't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
No, I know that.
Well, I'm just saying in terms of what the number is utilized is we have a long-term obligation spreadsheet that it has all of our long-term obligations, and then that pieces off into where it's identified in the budget.
I'm sure you have it. The only reason I'm making the point is if we're spending a tax dollar on debt expense, we can't use it for anything else.
You can actually find, it's Fund 300, it's a debt service fund. And it listed all the principal payments, all of the, interest payments, and yes, it is about 1,505,752.
So, we're creeping up on 40% of our budget we're paying in we're paying back principal and interest on loans. And, you know, you can only go so high with that. Okay,
All right. Agenda item number 7, staff reports and updates. Were there any additional ones outside of the staff report that was here?
I just received request from, Northern Dawn Door Children's Center, request for sponsoring for donation. Last year they did not submit, so it didn't go on the budget, so they submitted this year. And it's not specific amount, but historically village contributed $5,000 a year.
So it was in this year's budget for,
I did not believe so.
it was,
No, it was not.
it was not.
They never submitted request for.
No, but if they said historically, we did contribute 5,000.
Prior to this past, 2026.
Prior to 26. Got it. We didn't do anything for 26. Okay.
Did you get that in an email form?
Just letter,
Oh, gotcha.
and I can forward.
Forward it to everybody. I think that would be good. Okay,
Just, would you like me to forward to the board or finance or everyone?
we can start at finance.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you. Any other staff updates?
So then, just let us know if you have any questions at all, but Vlad did put together some information just regarding the Q2 budget to actuals. This is something that typically was done historically for the finance committee, is just going over the information as we move through the quarters. Everything has been fully recognized for Q2. Is that fair to say? I mean, we've talked about that the audit came back, and excuse me, the review from our financials, I guess if you want to call it, the audit came back. So this is including all of the expenditures that we have. So if there's any questions at all for Vlad, we put together pretty detailed information on where we're sitting mid-year.
just one, Vlad, based on the adjustment you recommended, and I think the board approved that was made to TIP. What was the net on the audited financial results? Did we end up with that surplus of $100,000? Or was it
The
different?
bottom line for 2025,
Yeah,
we ended up having surplus of $40,000.
40,000, so it was tight.
Yes.
Okay.
40,000 plus.
Yeah, I think actually you might have been less than, yeah, I think I remember that wrong. And that was only because we made a little bit of an adjustment to.
I asked for an extra transfer from TIP number
Yeah,
one.
okay,
Way back to the general fund.
Yeah.
We could have ended up with larger surplus, but there were scheduled transfers to debt service. So in order to keep things straight, I requested for them to adjust those transfers to debt service, which is set as
yeah.
back in like 500 some thousand.
And but that was debt service specifically related to spending in the tips, correct?
Not just the tip, like.
Okay,
It was covering pretty much everything. Like the
Okay.
other-
that's fine.
I came up earlier, just in the summary that he has, Village Hall, it looks like it's about 15,000 a year. Budgeted for expenses for Village Hall. This is a helpful breakdown, but. Anybody have any questions specifically about the breakdown in the main packet on the year-to-date versus actuals for 2026?
The snow removal thing, I mean, if we get hit in the Q4, we're in trouble. But who knows? And then the wages in Public Works. Unworked wages. It's double that budget. I'm not sure why, there's nothing we do about it at this point, same with the HSA. Pennies. So that's probably something to consider when we're working with the HR specialist.
No, whatever the amount of HSA budgeted for the year, it stays the same.
Yep, I know.
But the allocation, that's kind of shifts around. So what happened, when was budgeting the wages and allocating the amount? The amount that budgeted, it gets allocated, let's say 10% here, 10% there, you know. But in reality, they work, instead of 10% here, they work 15% or 20% there. That's why it blows out, this category out of proportion. It's just because when they're saying they're going to be working on, something else, but, you know, storm came out and they claiming all of those hours as streets and things like that.
Right.
But
Okay.
at the end,
Well, that makes, okay.
we can, because the same amount of finances were budgeted, so it's possible to adjust without deepening into reserves, like I did last year. So what I proposed, like, grab like $3,000 from here, move them here, but well, you know, so therefore this one is decreasing and the other category is increasing, but the bottom line of effect to the budget is zero. So I hope we're gonna come up with the same situation for 2027. We just need to run simple adjustment instead of
Just one I know, I just happened to catch it here because you had us on this page. Wages at the marina, half year are at $60,000. So if we double that, we'd be at 120, and they're asking for a budget in 27 of just shy of 150,000. That seems like a big increase. It's not benefits, it's just looking at wages. And we have, the good news is we have the most people I can ever remember working at the marina, but the bad news is the bathrooms were just as dirty this year as they were last year. So, I mean, we gotta make sure we're getting our money's worth out of that.
Yeah, and I think there's some future discussions to be had. I was talking to Vlad and Ben. I wasn't around when, because normally we typically tended to operate with one marina manager.
Mhm.
And at some point, another assistant marina manager was brought on, which is great, and my hearsay understanding was that he was being trained in to take over the role of primary marina manager. So we're gonna be having a discussion with Dave just as a, what's the plan? What does this look like? Like, we're not, nobody wants to force anybody out or anything, you know, we're not talking about that at all. But it does, especially when we started to offer raises for training that was hit.
Yeah.
You know, if you got certification, you got a raise, and I think we, you know, underthought those numbers a little bit compared to what they actually are for two people. So we'll be having some discussions on what our budget looks like in the future as far as personnel goes.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing too on this marina budget, their revenue line. Boy, they're looking at taking their revenue line up dramatically.
I didn't think it looked that bad. They take it up every year.
Yeah, I know.
Between seasonal and transient.
Yeah, I
And
hear
they
you.
make it every time.
But. Well, I'm looking at slide 65. People can take a look at it.
Are you in the budget?
I'm in the budget on, you have to go to the top of the page, the spreadsheet 55, there's no page numbers. It shows, excuse me, it looks like this is marina revenues total are going in this year's budget. I don't know what their actual is, but at a half year, they're at 819,000. They're saying for the full year, they're going to be at almost 2 million. And they are looking for it to increase to 2.5 million next year. And it's the CIP that they've budgeted $1 million this year, and then they are asking for another 1.5 next year, if I'm reading this right.
Is that, I'll let you answer that, Vlad.
it had to be budgeted, because initially the project of new building should have happened already.
Mhm.
So that's that's why it was budgeted, so it
Okay,
didn't happen. So it moves into next year, so there will be no revenue on that side, so there will be no expenditure on the other side either. So since it's it's not like levy amount, it's just a bonding, but
so that
We
bonding,
didn't take out a bond for it.
okay, so, so if they, does anybody look at the cash flow and the reserves for the water and wastewater in the marina?
yeah, audit team does.
Okay, and then do they pay back the village for any debt expense, or do they pay it directly?
They pay direct.
Okay,
Marina has some debt expense that gets paid back to the village. It's gonna be done in 2 years, I think 2028, so last year. That there was some kind of like interfund loan to Marina.
mm-hmm,
Then until 2031, it's gonna carry the Johnson water fund loan,
okay.
and it's just gonna go on.
And they can't sign off on a loan themselves, right? It's gotta be approved by the village board.
There are different parts of the loan. One is gonna be, one can be a revenue-based loan, which is kind of almost Marina, but if something happens, it's still gonna come up to the village. Am I correct, Ben?
Yeah,
I would describe it as like a co-signer type of situation.
Yeah,
They're not
the other one-
technically their own entity, but.
I'm just saying, they have to come back to the village board for approval if they're borrowing money, correct?
Correct,
Yeah, one way or another, it needs to go to the board.
Okay,
Yeah, and Vlad has been doing a great job. We kind of know that this building is coming down the pipe and that we're gonna have to bond for it. We think it's gonna be way more than the projected 1.2 million, not way more, but more, right? Can't build it for that price anymore. That was the price maybe 5 years ago. So he's been working with Baird to really run through the marina's books, see what kind of cash we have on hand, what we could potentially bond for at a comfortable rate, given all of the expenses over the next 5 years.
Okay.
So he has been wonderfully on top of it, and we will discuss that at the next marina committee meeting, but when we go to bond for that money, I think that information will be given to the board.
yeah. Will there be a public hearing on that too?
I don't know how it works, honestly.
Probably not a separate public hearing because the regular board meeting is the public.
Okay, that's true.
So you can probably make an agenda item of like public discussion on this and have public input. But
I
it's-
think
it's-
you're asking if it's necessary, and I don't believe it's necessary, but that would be a discussion item for
The
later.
board,
I mean, for me personally, just to watch the board budget side, an extra meeting, that's just an extra expense.
yeah.
All right. Moving on, if everybody's okay with it, matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to committee official or employee. We have propane for village facility. At some point, we'll get to that. Do we have anything else moving forward other than updated SIP and budget numbers?
Not any that are proposed by staff unless there is anything that is proposed to be discussed from the committee.
I would say maybe just. It doesn't even need to be the next meeting or the one after that, but at some point, let's look into the rules on the historical society request. Have that be kind of a back burner item.
Yeah, I mean, the concern I have is, I did a little research, but not enough, but when you're making charitable contributions with taxpayer money, there are some rules. And I'm not sure I know them exactly, but we should understand that, really, for anything. Maybe it's a dollar limit that we can do without, you know, additional scrutiny, but I sure would like to know.
Right.
Is our next meeting August 31st, right, 9 AM?
Very much close.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does that?
That's what I had.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
then yes, it very likely. Okay, so we have a whole month to update all of these things. Yeah, next finance meeting, August 31st, Monday, 9 AM. That's not Labor Day or anything, right?
No.
Think we-
That's
Following
the
week.
next weekend.
That's
Okay, great.
correct.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Glassowitz,
Second.
second by Hassan, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, adjourned at 1:16 P.M.
Thanks, Julie.
Guys.
I know it was a fun-filled adventure.
Yeah, you did a great job, though.
Yeah.
I mean, we,
Did we ever figure out where the IT room is up there?
I know Frontier
Well,
is
we
down, so I think Spectrum's down. I don't know that any.
No, I'm in on.
Oh, you're on Spectrum?
I'm on, well, no, I just got into the village and it's working.
Oh, good.
To the Sister Bay Liberty Grove
Yeah.
network, so it's working now.